Hello, I am LeahKazuno. I have been running Diddy Kong Racing DS since 2019. It was actually my first speed game. And this is my first time showcasing it at the marathon myself. It's quite a dear game to me. And for the longest time I didn't even have a capture card, so I didn't even have the means to do it, but now I do, and yeah, I get to show it off today. There was a bid war for character choice between Taj and Wizpig. I don't think any of the donations actually went towards the signing, so we're just going to go with Wizpig because he's cooler. They have the same stats, so you can pick either or. I guess there's not too much else to mention, so this will be going through all 24 tracks in the default vehicle in race mode, so other racers, items on the track, that kind of thing. So without further ado, I'm going to get started in 3, 2, 1, boom. Okay, so to start off every race, we get a start boost, which is a bit more involved than in Diddy Kong Racing 64. I'm going to make a lot of comparisons to the N64 version, by the way, throughout the run, because I figure if you are familiar with one of the Diddy Kong Racing speedruns, you are more likely to be familiar with 64. So in 64, you just press the A button at the right time to get the start boost, but in DS you have to do one of three things depending on the vehicle you're in. In the car, we just draw lines down on the touchscreen. It's quite simple. What I'm doing in the car is I am drifting while holding the B button. So, oh whoops, I spun out. If you hold it for too long, you spin out. So essentially, this has gone by a few names over the years. Some call it ARB drifting because, well, you hold A, R, and B. And it's it's kind of weird that it makes you go faster, but for some reason it does. And the car is kind of the reason why for most categories in this game, because they are so much faster in specifically the car. As well. Also, if you've watched the Diddy Kong Racing 64 speedrun, you're probably familiar with A-tapping in that game. We don't actually have that in DS, we just hold the A button down the whole time. So, overall it's a bit of a simpler game, but it does have its fun parts. I think drifting's very fun. You kind of go completely sideways, ideally. There is a sort of feel to getting a drift right in this game. And whereas in N64, like, the drift button is more of like a turning tool, like you use it to make very quick adjustments on the spot. In DS, it's more of a commitment. Essentially, what I'm doing to get into a drift is I am kind of setting my angle up with R, and then when there is a certain point at which I want to hold in the opposite direction to kind of neutralize my drift. There is a time at which, there is a best time to do this that will get you the most speed out of your drift. And then once all of that is set up, oh god, once all of that is set up, you then add the B button, and what this does is it pretty much makes you move as fast as if you were taking a zipper boost constantly. So it's really powerful. That was unintentional, but it looks cool. That happens sometimes. If you, airtime is the nemesis of drifts. When you go over a bump, if you get a certain amount of height from a bump, then it can mess up your drift. What you might have to do is hold in the direction of your drift when you land to prevent getting, to prevent turning in the opposite direction. It's quite a tight drift over here across this finish line. Didn't quite get it, but what we can do is let off of the B button during the drift to widen our turn. So that makes the drift strat in this track much more consistent. It's quite hard to make It's quite hard to complete a run of this track holding the drift across the finish line with B twice. What you can actually do is you can hold the drift all the way across the bridge here, but you require an extremely precise line to do it. It's pretty much TAS only, but it would save like half a second every time you do it. But not too much more here. Should get a 58 in this. Nice. You pretty much want to be hitting a sub-minute there most of the time. Right, we're seeing our first alternate vehicle now, which is plane. So, start boost here, you have to spin a bunch of times on the touchscreen. If you're familiar with N64, you're probably also familiar with barrel rolls. That is when, in the plane, runners look like they're going crazy and spinning completely out of control. We don't quite do that here. Unfortunately, they remove barrel rolls in DS, so it becomes more of a line challenge more than anything. Whizpig and Taj, their handling in plane is questionable. I accidentally fired that boost off early, whoops. They have questionable handling in plane. They are part of a four-way tie for highest top speed in plane, so they can still go very fast. But ideally, in plane ILs, time trials, you would be using TT the Clock, who is overall one of the best characters. But yeah, TT, Taj, Whizpig, and also Drumstick, the other unlockable character, are all tied for best speed in plane. This is a rather short plane track, not too much going on here. There is an out of bounds in this track that is TAS only, and also not faster by that much. In N64, you go out of bounds in this track quite a lot. It's one of the most important tracks in the speedrun for N64. But yeah, that's pretty alright. I think you want to be hitting like a 125 or 126 there, ideally. Can get down to 124 on a good run. I'm going to be doing the tracks in order for this run, but you can do them in any order you want. I'm going to try something cool here. It's going to look rather embarrassing if I don't get it, but I want to hit it. It would look really cool if I got it. Oh, I'll try again. If I can at least get the first part. Okay. Just a moment. I'm doing my best here. Nice. Nice. Yes. Okay. Right, I got that out of the way. Nice. So what I just did there is I went out of bounds, as you can probably tell. So, compared to N64, where a lot of the out of bounds happen by barrel rolling at the right time, because the barrel roll in that game kind of negates the effect of water and other liquids. In this game, out of bounds clips are a lot more involved and also a lot more difficult. Essentially what you have to do is you have to get your plane kind of stuck in the ground. So what you can do is you can kind of drive off a cliff slowly and with one of your wings grinding against the wall, and this will kind of get you face planting into the ground. And then you have to find something to push yourself out against, so ideally like a very steep slope usually works. And in that case there is a steep slope right there, right by the cave entrance that works perfectly for us. So this is unfortunately a very slow time because I took a while to set up the clip, but I'm glad I got it at all, to be honest. As you can see, you can get down to like a 120 there while I got a 206, but good nonetheless. And the reason why I was struggling a little bit to get out of bounds is that while you're in that weird flip state, your controls are like freaking out. Like, your controls are getting inverted like every couple seconds. It's really weird to navigate. The game is lagging a lot. Yeah, it's a whole mess, but worked out. Moving on from that, this is one of my favourite car tracks, to be honest. I really like this one. Walrus Cove. Got a nice drift you can do across the finish line here. See if I get it. Nice. And a drift switch. One of my favourite bits of movement to do is a drift switch. It's really hard to explain what exactly the inputs are for a drift switch. I just kind of have it all in muscle memory by this point. But it is a very fun piece of movement to do in the tracks where you can do it. It's a rather advanced bit of movement as well. Like, this track has quite a high skill ceiling. Lots of bumps here you gotta be careful of. Although some of them can never chuck you like high enough that you need to like neutralize your drift or anything. But yeah, if you carry a drift over the right side of over the right path at the end, it's actually faster than taking the left path with the zipper on it, which is really weird to N64 runners. I say N64 runners as if I'm not literally one of them. For context, I don't mean to brag, I'm also the N64 time trial champion for this game. So I'm kind of like the dual champion for this game. Like Diddy Kong Racing 64 and DS. It's really cool. Oh my god, Brandino's in chat, hello. Brandino is a legend. Alright, going into Snowball Valley here. This track is very inconsistent. A lot of boosts here, it's very short, but yeah, kind of anything can happen here. This turn... I said earlier that airtime's kind of the nemesis of drifts. It's also kind of the nemesis of car in general. It's really hard to control how much height you get from any bump in car. And that includes this downslope here. You really want to minimize airtime where possible, so you want to try and get some grip on the ground there. You don't always get it, but yeah, there are some measures you can take to kind of guarantee, like, go wide and then press B a little bit. Usually works. Oh god. Another difference to N64 is that traps like that are a lot more punishing in DS. For example, that oil slick, that wouldn't have mattered too much in 64, but in DS it just puts me to a complete stop and also messes up my turning for the next couple seconds. So yeah, it's a hot mess. Another really fun car track here. Sorry, there's some noise going on outside. I swear I closed my window this time. This is another one of my favourite car tracks. A really cool drift you can do right at the start here to go all the way down the hill. It's, again, quite an advanced drift strat there. The quote-unquote shortcut through the right side of the forest is faster in DS. It's technically faster in 64 as well, but only in a very niche category in time trials. What we can do here is we can let off B during that lap transition to actually hold my drift the whole way through, which is faster than breaking it to take the last zipper and then starting a new one. It's actually considerably faster, and it feels really cool to do. There are 2 tracks in this game you can actually complete in a single unbroken drift. It's really hard in both cases. One of them is actually TAS only. It's Jungle Falls, the one I played earlier, but it kind of gives you an idea of how broken drifts can be. They are very fun to play with though. This is actually quite a good Frosty Village. I want to see if I can finish this decently. Ah, I had a feeling that was going to happen. I tried to let off B a little bit to get out of the way. Didn't quite make it. Another thing I'm doing during drifts is, like, every 2 seconds or so, I am quickly letting off. Okay, so say I'm holding a drift out like this. Every 2 seconds or so, I am letting off the direction and then quickly repressing it. Because if you hold it for too long, you'll spin out, and oh god, why did I just talk so much when I've got to do this next? Yeah, you essentially want to like turn as little as possible when you're doing those little drift adjustments. But welcome to Hovercraft. Casual players' least favourite vehicle, speedrunners' favourite. Casual players, how the hell do you control this thing? Speedrunners love it. Trust me. And it doesn't destroy your thumb like on N64. So as you saw, I had to blow into the microphone to get the start boost for Hover. That was fun. Also, unrelated thing about boosts in this game, when you take a zipper boost or the start boost in a track, you don't want to repress the A button until... You want to let go of the A button and not repress it until the boost has completely died out. Like that. Like I did it there. So, in Hover, in general, we are hopping a lot to both preserve boost, because boost dies out while we're on the ground or in the water, and we're also hopping as a turning tool, because simultaneously being on the ground or in the water makes it harder for us to turn in Hover. More about Hover in a little bit, because the next track is in Hover, but for now we got a nice chill car track here. It's quite a difficult car track, this one. I drift there with a couple B releases just to make my line work. Oh, I let that off in the wrong place. When you're letting off a drift, you really want to do it in a specific way, which is... Oh, one sec. There we go. Fairly difficult strat you can do there to carry the drift from the end all the way to the ship. You can carry some drifts for a really long time in this game. But yeah, when you're letting off a drift, you ideally want to let go of R first, and then while you're still holding B, that will help you kind of regain... That will help you straighten out a lot more. If you let go of B first, you kind of just swerve off in whatever direction you were drifting in, and it's not very fun. So there is some finesse to it. Oh, that was close. Can go for a cheeky drift here, but it doesn't save any time. 124, that's pretty good. Alright, going back to Hover. One sec. My microphone is very temperamental. I don't know how that sounded on you guys' ends. Probably very amusing, if I had to guess. The thing I mentioned... I
think it was fairly quiet, you're all good.
Nice. The thing I mentioned about not being able to turn so easily while on the ground or in the water is very relevant in this track, because this track has the nemesis of Hover, which is wavy water. So kind of what you got to do in this track is stay on top of the waves by hopping very precisely, and if you at all like don't stay on top of the waves, you're kind of screwed. So like when you're preserving speed in Hover, you can imagine like the more you stay on the ground, the more speed you lose. So ideally, like, you want to be... There's very much a rhythm to it. And that rhythm is extremely important to maintain in a track like this. Thankfully this is one of only 2 tracks in the game that has considerably wavy water, so it's not too bad. But yeah, Pirate Lagoon's a really difficult track, and 113 is pretty decent. You can get below 110 there, but it's quite difficult. Okay, this is the other track that I mentioned that you can do in one drift. One continuous drift starting from the beginning right here. I'm gonna see if I can get it. So it's made a bit easier by the fact that you can release speed during a drift. I'm gonna see if I can get it. Nice. Oh yeah, Whispy glitched out a little bit there. Oh no. If you at all hit a zipper during a drift, it kind of messes you up. Because the zipper will send you in the direction you're facing rather than the direction you're moving. That's another difference to 64. Oh, held the drift for too long. But yeah, in general, the longer you can hold a drift, the faster you will go. Ah, I knew that line wasn't going to work, really. Hello, Drywall. Right, I do believe this is the longest track in the run. It's a really long plane track here. It's about a 2-minute plane track. Not sure what else I have to say about it, really. It's... I've gotten quite good at this track from doing it in RTA runs and aiming to get like a sub 2, which I have done before. I've gotten quite good at taking the lines in this one, especially even with like Whizpig's terrible handling. And you know what, this probably has a chance actually, so far. Not made any big mistakes yet. Maybe I'll focus up a bit on this one unless I make a mistake. There's kind of a window. Ground zippers have quite tall vertical hitboxes in this game, so you can hit them even when you're not even close to the ground. Which is stark contrast to 64, you have to pretty much be planted into the ground to hit ground zippers. This has a chance, I think, if I get a really good last lap. Oh, that might have been it. Damn it. That can happen if you bonk and plane. Yeah, I think that definitely would have been it. Man. It's not quite as catastrophic to bonk and plane in DS. If you bonk and plane in 64, in any context, it's like a 5-second time loss. It's disastrous. In DS it's like a 2-second time loss, usually. And I ended up with a 201 there, so that checks out. Greenwood Village is one of the hardest car tracks. It's a bit of a mess. Lots of bumps here. It's easier to just drift through this section. Try and press B there to get some grip on the ground, and I wasn't lucky there. This turn is difficult. Drifting is important, but it's also important to like have good control of your car in just normal driving sections, because there are some parts you just can never drift through in this game. And when you're doing normal turns as Wizpig or Taj, it's actually easier to turn if you repeatedly tap the D-pad, or tap it a couple times, rather than just hold it. Which is what I'm doing in a lot of cases in this track. To try and like hug walls tightly, or just make some turns even work, like that turn at the end. For the record, that turn at the end, not only is it like just a really difficult turn to hit in general, it's also kind of over a gap, so you can't even turn past a certain point. You kind of need to go wide and set it up like that. Is it sub 130? No, it's not sub 130. Close. Ideally you want to be getting sub 130 there, at a high level. But it can be tough. Right, we're in our third hover track out of 4 in the run. And this is the longest one. One of the easiest hover tracks as well, I'd say. Pirate Lagoon and our last hover track are definitely more difficult than this one. Oh no, that was not intentional. Split path here, left path is faster. Seeing these logs here reminds me that some track hazards are not present in the time trial mode, and those logs are one of them, so you know, having played time trials a lot, it almost feels a bit weird having those logs there now, but it's not too bad. I'm doing a little thing there where I use my boost before I go over the bridge. Whoops. Use my boost before I go over the bridge because in hover, if you go over a ledge without like hopping, if you just like drive over a ledge, then what you can do is you can hold the R button to get a to buffer a frame perfect hop as soon as you land for free, which is really nice. Just helps a little bit more of all that speed preservation and whatnot. It's also a good time to mention that this category just plays all the races in their default vehicle, but you can actually play most of the tracks in most of the vehicles. Ultimately, we've got 24 tracks and 3 vehicles. Some combinations aren't possible, but that comes out to 57 possible combinations. And notably, hover is, although it's the least represented vehicle in the default tracks, you can actually play hover on every single track in this game, which is really cool for time trials, because a lot of the non-default hovers are very fun to do. This is another fairly difficult car track here, but it's also quite a quick one, Hornet Woods. I think this is our last track in the run that's below a minute. Maybe I'm going to be focusing a bit more during this one so I don't mess up. Oh, that's unlucky. I got a big bounce there. Yeah, unfortunately airtime can be kind of random in this game sometimes. And it can be really mean like it was there. Slightly faster to drift between those 2 zippers and hold the drift into the tunnel a little bit than it is to break drift at the zippers. If everything goes right, this should be a sub-minute. It's also quite important to try and set your drift angle up when you're coming off airtime like that. I thankfully did it really well. Not quite sub-1. Messed up the ending. It's close. Okay, if you played this game casually, you might not even know that this track existed. This track or any of the next 3 tracks, you might have not even known that they existed. Because to unlock them you have to collect all golden trophies, in the first 4 worlds, and then beat the first Whizbig race in adventure mode. And it takes you to Future Funland, which is... I mean, it's certainly fun, it's certainly futuristic. It's also really difficult. It's kind of agreed upon that Future Funland is like the hardest world in... Most runners agree in both Diddy Kong Racing 64 and DS that Future Funland is the hardest world in the game. Especially this first track, Space Dust Alley. Fun fact, this track actually uses a different music track to what it uses on N64, and in fact, like, a lot of the music tracks were changed in DS because in 64 a few tracks were repeated, used across several different tracks. I'm using the term track here to refer to racetrack and music track, that's confusing. Oh god. But in DS they endeavoured to have a unique music track for every racetrack. So this one actually got the music from... the music in this track on DS is actually borrowed from Spaceport Alpha on N64, which we'll be seeing in a couple minutes. And there are a couple other cases where they really either composed entirely new tracks or just shuffled it around a little bit. I think it goes without saying this cave section is really difficult. Can I at least do it right once? I can. Nice. Really difficult to make that look with Whizbig's handling, but we got a 158 out of it. Nice. Really, as long as you can hit like a 158 or 157 there, you're cooking. Alright, I might have lied when I said Wimble Plains is the longest track in the run, because this track might end up being longer if I struggle a little bit. This is one of the hardest car tracks in the run. Kind of anything can happen in this track. For context, this track is kind of like... It's made up of a load of tiny slopes. And I've already mentioned that, like, slopes and airtime are kind of the nemesis of car. So you can imagine what it's like to run this one. Good first lap though. Couple tiny drifts here I do. Mess that one up a little bit, but I do a couple tiny drifts just to make it easier to navigate. Including one big one across the finish line here. You can also press the Y button to delete whatever item you have, which can be useful if you've got a green green balloon, which they drop traps. For this spiral section, I am kind of tapping B a bunch and tapping in the direction of the spiral a bunch. No drifts there. It's a bit of a weird and inconsistent section. You just kind of have to get a feel for it. Really want to maximize the grip you have, but not too much. Oh, 39. And I got immediately kicked into the air. 39 laps are really nice to get. Oh, whoa. It's really easy to go out of control sometimes. The stats screen kind of lies to you. Like, the stats screen tells you that Whizbig and Taj have 1 out of 5 in handling. That's actually not really true at all. They have arguably the best handling in car. That's kind of the entire reason why B-drifting works. And they're also perfectly fine in hover, far from the worst handling in hover or plane. Okay, well no, in plane they're kind of questionable, but yeah. Ideally I want to be hitting like a 200 there, maybe a 201. So 203, I mean, I messed up the last lap, so that's to be expected. This is one of the hardest plane tracks in the run. This also has an entirely new track that was composed exclusively for DS, and I think it is one of the best music tracks in the game. This is a really cool track. Big fan of this one. Does anyone have a cat jam in chat? I'm also going to be focusing a little bit because this is quite a difficult track. I do want to use a shield here because they can sometimes drop oil slicks in that section. That section actually had no ground zippers in 64, which meant that the, well no, actually this entire track had no ground zippers in 64, which meant that in car and hover, this track had pretty much no zippers you could use on 64, which turned into a really interesting time trial. But I think overall I prefer the DS versions of the time trials. See there, like, 2 different oil slicks there. I think this is one of the best car tracks in time trial personally in DS. Huge fan of it. And in plane it's a really fast track too. Oh god. That's really solid actually. Mid 145 was that? Oh wait, no, it was a 146. 146, low one with whiz-big handling, that's really solid. Right, another car track here. Random bit of trivia, for some reason. Okay, so in the German translation of this game, they changed the track names a little bit compared to the German translation of N64. This track is just called Star City in German and DS. I don't know why. It used to be a more Germany Sternenstadt, but no, it's just Star City, like in English. Oh, I wasn't paying attention. That's what I get for talking about German. I'm sorry, I care too much about translations sometimes. This track is... The main problem in this track is the city section, which is admittedly a bit easier in DS compared to 64. This little drift here doesn't save too much and it can be fairly difficult, but I think, I don't know, I'm just used to going for it. Unfortunately I messed up that lap 2 quite a lot at the beginning, so this can't really be like a sub 140 I don't think. Also, this downward path, not using the bridge, actually did not exist in 64. And it looks really weird to people who've only played 64. Oh, nice line there. And Diddy stop my balloon. Oh, whoa. Timber having problems. And I really want to be getting like a 138 or 137 there, personally. Oh, Hide Seat just raided my channel. Hello. Oh, way out of control. This is, so this is our last set of 4 tracks here. These are the DS exclusive DK Island tracks. These are based on the Donkey Kong Country series. This game came out before Returns, so no DKCR references unfortunately, but yeah, this is... I think I like all of these tracks quite a bit. Maybe Splashdown Pass not so much, but Thunder Cove is very fun. Oh, taking a drink there. This is another rather long track, but it's quite nice because it means you have a lot of room to play around with drifts here. Like, this is, I think, a great track for learning how to do advanced drift strategies. I'm starting my drift in the air there, and then kind of setting my angle up as soon as I land, and then I get to do a drift switch here. It's just so good, this track. Really recommend this one if you want to get better at car in this game. If I can get the line here. Oh, almost. That's not the way I expected to get it. Didn't expect to go inside the tree there, but that almost worked. Because it's, for that lap transition, it's faster to... Oh, be careful there. Don't want to go into drink. For that lap transition, it's fastest to hold a drift and skip the first of the 3 zippers at the beginning. Oh, that's mean. But it's safer to just kind of break the drift early and take all 3 zippers. That was really mean, Diddy. Wow. CPUs can be harsh in this game. Meandering Mount. This is probably a hot take. I think this is an S tier track. A lot of runners hate this track because it's really inconsistent. I love this track. I think a lot of the problem with this track early on comes from not understanding how to play it, because I used to be a hater as well, but I think this track is so fun in every vehicle. It's really wonderful. And really what I want to be getting here is I want to be getting at least a 28 on every lap, ideally. This track notably has no drifts. This is one of only 2 car tracks where it's faster to actually do no drifts whatsoever. If you touch the grass there when you're going into the cave, you actually have a much easier time sticking to the ground, getting some grip there, because the grass slows you down just enough, and it also gives you a bit of an angle while you're in the air, as you really stick to that slope going down. Oh, whoops. I'm holding a little bit of B there to slow down so I don't jump too far. Didn't quite get the grass jump there. Oh, actually no, I got it a little bit. So unfortunately that bonk kind of cost me a lot of time, but still sub 130. Yep, Brandino with the more common opinion there that this track sucks, and like, I get it. But I swear, I swear that track is fun. Unlike this one, I don't really like this one. Not a fan of Splashdown Pass, really. This one's quite fun in hover, actually, but in plane and car, especially car, to be honest, this one's not very fun, I don't think. It does have an out of bounds in plane, actually. A lot of these plane tracks do have an out of bounds, but they're either too difficult or just don't say very much. This track is one of them, but it literally only saves a couple seconds, so it's not really worth it considering it's one of the harder ones. Speaking of, we actually had a player come out of nowhere about a year ago and find like 5 more out of bounds clips just that we never thought of. It's really insane. I have actually yet to learn any of them. Unfortunately, a couple of them can only be used for a flap in time trials, but it's really cool that we have them. We only have like 2 unbroken plane tracks left out of 15, which is kind of an insane statistic. Like, suddenly DKRDS has more out of bounds in plane than 64 does. It's been pretty good so far, actually. This is quite a difficult track to navigate with Wizpig's handling, but I'm handling it quite well here. This last section, really want to hug the wall here. In plane, TT has much sharper handling, so there are many cases with TT where you actually want to turn without holding R, but with Wizpig I'm pretty much holding R at all times, just for that extra turning stat. Right, last track here. And another one of my favourites of the DK Island tracks. Oh nice, got the good beginning there. So this is the last hover track, and also the last track in the run, Strangle Shrine, and I think this is certainly the most unique of the DK Island tracks. This is another track that has wavy water like Pirate Lagoon, but it's nowhere near as bad as in Pirate Lagoon. That is to say, like, while it is, like, wavy... Oh my god, that's a 29 lap. Wow, okay. That's really fast. Oh, on this run. That's unfortunate. I don't think I've ever had a 29 lap there before. Wow, okay. It's pretty much flawless. Yeah, the waviness is nowhere near as much of a problem, because you don't actually have to, like, turn with the waves. Notice right here... oh, screwed it up. When you're not in a boost and hover, turning kind of... It almost sentences you to death, because, like, your turning gets really messed up if you turn while you're on the ground, but the exception is if you're in a boost. Because if you're in a boost, for some reason you can actually turn kind of freely. So what I do after that second to last zipper there is I take a turn and then I start hopping. Like this. That log can get in the way. Also, sorry I forgot to mention, time's coming up when I cross the finish line in like 3, 2, 1. Yay! It was 45:31 on my end. Yeah, it's pretty much like as good as I could have expected. I went for some silly stuff. EP out of bounds. And I made some mistakes in some other tracks, but you know what, that's good enough. I pretty much got everything I wanted to there. I'm glad I got to show off EP out of bounds. Yeah, I think I don't have too much else to say about this other than if this game interests you in any way, don't be discouraged by the fact that, like, DS capture cards can be hard to access, because, like, I've played this game I played this game for nearly 5 years without having a capture card, and that didn't stop me. It made it more difficult, for sure, but it didn't stop me. And we've got a very small DS community, but it's kind of nice that this game has a community at all. It really underwent a big revival around 2021-ish. And, you know, we still get a couple runs every now and then to this day. This game is actually... Let me just quickly check the date on this. Don't want to hold you up for too long. This game actually celebrated its 18th anniversary about 11 days ago. So, yeah, it's quite old, but, you know, it's still alive, and people still play it. And I really don't have much else to say, so I'll hand it back over now. And thank you for having me on.
Alright, thanks so much. Stick around, everyone. We've got a very short run coming up, so it's really blink and you'll miss it. It's Cyclo 8 all collectibles by High. So stick around, we'll be back in a few minutes' time. See you then.